welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time to check it out. We have a very special guest today. Honestly, one of my heroes, Nate Boyer. The man is a true inspiration and a great example of the American dream, and what a life he has led thus far. For those people who aren't familiar with Nate, he was an Army Green Beret, and then he walked on at the University of Texas and started as a long snapper. He never played football before in his life until he started at the University of Texas. He later spent some time on the Seahawks, and now he works on TV and film projects as well as some charities. And one of the things that he's most famous for is helping Colin Kaepernick come up with the kneel. Now, he didn't advise Colin to protest. In fact, he was actually hurt by Colin's protesting, and he wrote a letter to the Army Times with his point of view, but he wanted to hear Colin's side. And that's what's so inspiring to me about this whole thing is, to both men's credit, they disagreed with one another, but they sat down like men and they actually listened to each other's side. And I feel like that's a big thing that's lacking in the world right now, is the ability to listen to someone that you disagree with. So after discussing things with Colin Kaepernick, him and Nate came up with the idea to kneel, because if you remember correctly, originally Kaepernick was just sitting on the bench, and Nate felt that was disrespectful to the troops, who fight for our rights in this country. And they thought, well, what's a better way, to take a knee? You can peacefully protest, but still showing respect. So we're going to talk about all this stuff, and I only had about 30 minutes with Nate, so I had to cram a lot in. But I think we got a lot covered, and we talk about football, the Army, the kneeling stuff. Plus, I asked Nate if he would ever consider running for office. So you'll get the answer in this episode. Here we go. Welcome, Nate Boyer, former Seahawk, former University of Texas player, Army Green Beret, actor, producer. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, no. You know what? The most important thing is the co-founder of MVP, I think, of the charity, Merging Vets and Players.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I always end with the charity, so and I'll put that in the notes so people can donate to that if they have a few extra dollars. So real quick, because we only have about 30 minutes, but I want to get through your story, just the abbreviated version of it. And I think there's some stuff that maybe people don't know, because you grew up mostly in the Bay Area, which I think is interesting with this whole Kaepernick thing and the 49ers. You were a 49er fan, and pretty middle class, would you say, upbringing for the most part?
Yeah, especially when I was younger. I mean, when I got older, my parents started doing better, but they were starting out like they had me. My dad was in school at University of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was working out there at Oak Ridge National Lab, and then they switched. And since he's a racehorse veterinarian, they moved to the Bay Area. He started working at the racetrack, and then she went back to school at Cal Berkeley, actually. So then she was in school for most of my kind of younger childhood.
Yeah, and she has a PhD in environmental engineering. Your brother went to an Ivy League school. Your dad works 7 days a week, 80 hours a week. Is that where you get your work ethic from?
Yeah, he worked really, really hard. And he just retired last year, so he's kind of going through a crazy transition right now. Like, he's going back to work now and again, and I think he misses it, and it's tough. But yeah, I mean, just seeing both my parents, they both had really strong work ethics, but also were always there for us, as much as they could. They just pretty much dedicated their life to their family, and that required for their specific professions a lot of time and energy, towards that as well. But yeah, they're very hardworking people.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's so interesting just learning your whole story. You're such a fascinating person. You're looking for challenges at a young age. And I thought this kind of shocked me. I found out you got caught shoplifting at age 15, and like, it was the rush. You like that rush, but what did you learn from that? Because I think I'm not trying to do that to call you out or judge you, because I asked all my friends about that. I think we've all done that. We've all, done shoplifting thing, but what did you learn from that? Because you obviously took a different path.
Yeah. It was like, there was a lot of shame with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just like not wanting to feel that, but also like, if it's not yours, don't take it kind of simple values thing. You should work for everything that you have and earn, which is what my parents did and do. So it's kind of interesting that, like, I guess at 15, though, you don't really listen to your parents so much.
Right.
And you kind of still just do your own thing. And yeah, I definitely disappointed them a lot too. So I think the idea of letting people down or disappointing people was tough too. I definitely struggled with that. But yeah, so many of us do things for a rush. And I think a lot of us that maybe don't think we deserve good things like a good family, or, cause I was lucky to have two parents that not only were involved in my life, but really cared about. So maybe it was like, feeling undeserving of that or guilty for that. And so it's like, that's why you rebel. That's why often pastors' kids rebel and this kind of stuff, because it's like, you feel like you're not worthy of that kind of love and attention, maybe. I don't know.
Right. So then, I mean, you go through typical 20 stuff, you're trying to be an actor in LA and you're living in your car and you're partying, you're doing all that stuff. But then this is the kind of moment that changes your life, as you saw these pictures in a magazine about some stuff in, I think it was Sudan, right? Correct. Some genocide and stuff. And that really kind of woke you up to, I got to do something different with my life.
Totally. Yeah. It was a Time magazine article called, the title of it was The Tragedy in Sudan. And it was about the Darfur region, and the genocide that was going on and still going on, where, 300,000 people at that time, I think that was in 2004, 300,000 people had been killed. And, mostly women and children are left abandoned in these refugee camps. We're just filling up with them, and they were understaffed. And so I just made the decision to kind of go over there and help. And I tried to go through an NGO, and none of them would take me because I didn't have a college degree. So I just flew myself over there and figured it out once I got there. And it just completely changed my life. Like, those people were so generous and grateful that someone would leave the United States and come over and do that. And I just did it for a couple of months, but it made me really want to fight for those people. And that was the main reason, aside from 9/11, that I decided to join the military.
Right. Because when you came, you felt like you had really done something, and felt like a purpose. And when you came back and you weren't doing that, you felt kind of like you needed to do something bigger. So you doubled down, you joined the military. So tell me about basic training. Cause my brother, I've never been in the Army. My brother said it's so strict. He said, when they're making the bed, they get a ruler out and measure it. And if it's an inch off, they rip the sheets off and throw them to the ground.
Yeah. They're very particular. Everything is very regimented, and, they want everything to be done a certain way because, what it's teaching you is not only discipline, but attention to detail, and, and the value of not becoming complacent. Because when you're out there, especially in an infantry type unit where it's your lives are at risk, and there's bullets flying and all that, you need to be precise, but you also need to be very aware of everything going on and not let somebody down. And so if you're not training properly, and that goes all the way back to even the way that you make your bed, if you're not giving everything that type of attention and focus, something bad's going to happen, and you don't, and at the end of the day, you don't want that to be on you anyway.
Right.
So they just sort of bang that into you.
Right. But so the Green Beret Special Forces training, that's another level, and that's designed to make people quit. So how many people quit, and what percentage of people make it through that Special Forces training?
Yeah. I mean, there's a famous song called The Ballad of the Green Berets. And in the song, it talks about 100 men will test today and only 3 win the Green Beret. I don't think it's 3% pass rate. I don't think it's quite that low. Maybe it was originally, but from as far as, it's only 1% of the military that actually become special forces. So it is very small. And I think out of the training, I would say from the people that initially sign up to go to selection, it's probably more like 10%, or maybe as high as 20 at the top end, actually make it through everything. But it is a very high attrition rate. It's definitely not easy.
How much of that is physical endurance, and how much of it is mental? Did you see guys that look just really ripped and in shape give up faster than guys that maybe weren't as in shape and big?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so much more mental. Yes, you have to be in physical condition. You have to be in good shape, but you don't need to be a great athlete. And so much of that endurance, it is mental endurance, even though, your body's struggling and hurting. I think everybody's is at a certain point. So it's just are you going to keep going or not? That's a decision you have to make. And it's, so it probably becomes, 90% mental, because there's certainly those guys, like you said, that look the part, but if you don't have it between the ears, it doesn't matter. And there's other people that are that definitely don't look the part. You know what I mean?
That's me, and I don't have it between the ears, so I would. That's why I have so much respect for you guys, because I'm like, I could never do that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, but it's worth it, and it is. You get to do things that no one else gets to do legally anyway. And I mean, there's crazy, there's some crazy experiences and wild adventures and all that stuff.
Yeah, tell me about some funny stories though, because I saw my brother. I think there's a lot of downtime in the Army, right? I met my brother. They shot his back with an airsoft gun and made a smiley face on his back. Like, do you do stuff like that?
No, I don't know what unit your brother was in. That's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of downtime though, right? You're playing cards or.
Are you talking about like on a deployment?
Yeah. How do you pass the time?
Yeah, somewhat. Sometimes there's none. Sometimes you're just trying to, you're lucky if you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just depends. If you're running a lot of missions and you're out, and it's busy in wartime, it's definitely, there's a lot going on. But yeah, then when it is slow, it's very slow. So people do all kinds of things, man. I worked out a lot. I watched movies. I watched, if we could get any sports channels or whatever, I would try to watch during football season. I'd watch football, for instance.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, people play video games. Like I'm never into video games, but like people do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Shooting each other with airsoft guns. That's another level.
Yeah. I'll have to send you the video if I can find that. It was hilarious. But so what? He was in the Army.
Okay.
But not special forces, obviously. So what is the greatest like epiphany that you had while serving, either about yourself or about the world in general?
That, we're generally the same. Like we want the same things. People are for the most part very similar, and yeah, we might look a lot different and believe different things and go about things in a different way, but like we generally want the same stuff as far as safety, security. We want to belong. We want what's best for our family. All that kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know. We're all human beings, so I guess that should be common knowledge, but it's not.
Yeah.
It does feel very different. So I think that was the biggest thing I sort of took away. Yeah, that and just what you have to actually sacrifice, how much you have to actually sacrifice to be elite. It's definitely something that.
Yeah. So then you get out of the military. You never played Pop Warner football or high school football, and you regretted that. And then, like you said, you watched football in the military as kind of an escape. So you decided, hey, I'm gonna try out for football. And your buddy pushed you to go. I think you were thinking like a small school, maybe and your buddy's like, no, you should go to Texas, University of Texas. So you kind of talked your way into like joining the team in a way. You never snapped. They asked you where you played in high school, and what did you say?
I just said they didn't really ask where I played in high school. They asked the other guys that were trying out for film, like you know what I mean, and a reference from a high school coach. But they knew I'd been in the Army, so I was like, yeah, I don't really have that stuff, And they're like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that, And they just let me just try out with the team, and I was in good endurance. I was in good shape, so tryouts consisted mostly of conditioning. So I didn't really have a ton to do with football. It was some football drills, but we weren't like putting pads on or anything. Yeah, the first time I wore pads ever was at practice, and I was already on the team, and it was just like, here we go. I guess I'm gonna go out there and just get run over all day, which happened.
I love that you too. This is amazing. You learned how to long snap by watching YouTube videos. Did you have anyone else help you, like any sort of ex-players or anything like that, or that it was just the YouTube videos?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, so when I walked on as a safety. Like I didn't even know.
Oh, okay.
It was. Yeah, I was playing safety on the scout team, and then after my freshman year, I was just like, man, I got to find a way on the field because I'm not gonna make it as a DB. I'm not fast enough. And I noticed that the starting long snapper was graduating, and so was the backup. So they were both seniors. So I was like, man, maybe I'll just start long snapping and see if I can compete for the job. And so I started, I asked the starting long snapper to show me how he gripped the ball, and he gave me a couple little pointers, kind of aimed me in the right direction. And then I just started messing around with it and then watching YouTube videos and, working on it in the gym on my own time. And then when I went overseas that summer, I brought a couple of footballs with me and just snapped when I was deployed, and came back, and Coach Mac Brown, let me try out for the position. And I ended up earning the backup job at the start of the season. And then after the first game, I got a chance to compete for the starting job and won that, and then started for the next 3 years.
And never had a fumbled snap.
No fumbled snaps.
Yeah.
Luckily.
So then you get a chance with the Seahawks, and you had, again, this is the thing where like you had an offer to join the Rams, but you chose the Seahawks because it was the bigger challenge. I love that. Less shot at making the team. I'm noticing like a theme here. And so you're on the Seahawks. What's a good Seahawks story? I'm a huge Seahawks fan, if you didn't know. Like about either being on the field or the locker room, because like that was like the prime Seahawks. Those were like Lynch was on that team and Richard Sherman, right?
Yeah, it was Marshawn. Marshawn's locker was right next to mine, actually. So it was it was Marshawn, Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, obviously still there, Jimmy Graham, Doug Baldwin, Javon Curse,
Russell Wilson, of course.
Obviously Russ, yeah. And Michael Bennett. Who else, man? Who wasn't on that team? Eric Sweezy was still on the team.
But how does that compare, like Pete Carroll running his camp versus the military? Is it totally different? Because he seems more laid back.
Yeah, it's totally different. I mean, the military is different than any kind of camp, but Pete kind of ran it. It felt more like college, I think, than most NFL teams. I've been around other locker rooms and organizations. I haven't played for anybody else, but they definitely feel much more like a business, and his felt more kind of fun, and everything was a competition, and I mean, it comes from him having success in college. He sort of brought that mindset, I think, for his second go round in the NFL, because he was an NFL coach before he went to USC.
Right. Yeah.
And I think he changed his philosophy quite a bit. It was a lot more like, hey, look, I'm less stress, more fun. Doesn't mean you have to you're going to work less hard. But yeah, he kind of discourages like negative yelling at practice, because it's just it doesn't help. Like if people screw up, they either know that they screwed up, and the result's going to be them not playing or getting cut. Or if they don't know, then just take them, walk them to the side and say, hey, if you don't fix this, I can't play you, or you're going to get cut. And it's that simple. And that's more effective than like somebody out there that's afraid of getting yelled at again and starts playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, these are men, you know what I mean? And you like, if somebody screws up in their job, in a regular day-to-day job, and you just screamed at them like that, they're not going to respond well.
Right. No, they're not
going to want to perform for you.
That's a very good point. Now, I always wonder this, why didn't they keep you on as a practice squad member, or, just in case anything happens, a long snapper, but more importantly, just your influence. That was a very young team. You were the oldest person on the team as a rookie. You would have been an amazing influence in that locker room. Or why didn't they keep you on as an athletic trainer or coach or something? Like what?
I didn't want to get into coaching or anything like that.
Okay.
That's just not something I was interested in. But from the practice squad perspective, they only had 8 or 10 that you can have. And it's like, you got to have a backup quarterback, and then you've got to have there's no backups in the league anywhere. There's not one team that has a backup long snapper. It's just not a thing.
Yeah.
Like they want to have, you're going to have a linebacker and a receiver and, these other positions that you need to bring up, but also they are practicing against the starters every week, and they need the guys to be fast and the most athletic. And it wouldn't make any sense.
Okay. Yeah. So, you go on, life goes on. And then obviously, the Kaepernick thing, that's a big thing. So we'll just talk about that a little bit, because I'm sure you've talked that to death. But, you were hurt by that initially. I think people are confused because I didn't know this. You said that some people thought that you told Kaepernick to protest, but it was the opposite. You were upset by his protesting, and then you guys tried to come together. You wrote this letter in the Army Times. And then, this is what's so inspiring about your story, is that you were upset, but then you wanted to hear his side of it. So you sat down with Kaepernick and you guys talked for I don't know, what was it, an hour or two. What do you feel like his ultimate goal with the protests was? Like what was it gonna take for him to stop protesting at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even really an upset thing. It was more like a hurt thing,
Yeah, hurt.
Because the flag of the anthem, those symbols mean something very special to me and different to me because of my experience and relationship to them from the military. And Kaepernick, it was just different for him. He had a different experience, and for him, he didn't feel like those were representative of what America's supposed to be about. And it was like in the midst of a lot of these unarmed shootings of unarmed Black men by law enforcement, and then the lack of repercussions, the lack of accountability surrounding that. And it just like, it really hurt him and upset him. So this was something that he felt by doing this, it would draw a lot of attention, which it did to the subject matter. And through our meeting, he just, he read my letter because it was just like, hey, look, this is how I feel, but I'm not going to tell you how to feel because I don't know what your experience is like and what your life's like. And, I applaud you for what you're doing because it is, it's courageous and it's definitely a complicated issue. And I just said, I look forward to the day that you're willing to stand again. I'll be standing right there with you. And so he reached out. We ended up meeting in the lobby of the team hotel on game day before the final preseason game in 2016. And, it was in San Diego and it was military appreciation night because 9/11 was approaching. And so they were doing like a flyover with Navy SEALs jumping in the stadium and, full honors on the field. All that stuff was going on. So it's kind of a big deal. And, he said that he was committed to not standing. And, he asked me what I thought about that. And I just said, well, to me, if that's what you're going to do, I think it's important personally that you're alongside your teammates, but also like sitting just isn't super inspiring to me, And he was just like, well, what do you think I should do? And I was like, I mean, if you're not going to stand, maybe you at least be willing to take a knee alongside your teammates. I think that's like, I think it's more powerful gesture. It's also like showing that, you're still standing with these people that all think and feel different things about different situations, but you're still going to go on the field and, play the game with them. Just like in our families and in our work life, like we don't all agree on everything, but we still have to like work together.
Right.
And I just thought it was, I thought that would be
better than just sitting on the bench. Yeah. So
you agreed, yeah.
Yeah. So years later, Roger Goodell comes out and says, oops, we should have acknowledged racism and problems with law enforcement and we were wrong. So how do you think the NFL could have handled it better or have done something? Should they have done something different? Should they have allowed him to, should they have tried to attack the problems and try to?
They allowed everybody to protest. They never said nobody can protest. So, I think that's a little bit, I think the media took that a bit the wrong direction in the sense of like, there's definitely a different way the league maybe could have handled it or maybe got involved sooner and kind of quicker, but it's not like a simple thing for them. I mean, they were, it was complicated.
Yeah.
And then, other teams, I mean, were interested in signing Cap, but he didn't want to, he opted out of his contract with the Niners. He wasn't, cut. And then, he was offered a deal with the Broncos that was for less money, but it was a good deal and he didn't take it. And then eventually, teams stopped asking and it kind of turned into this blackballing narrative that I'm not quite sure is correct. I mean, that's an opinion thing, of course. I think there's certainly owners and teams that were not going to sign him because of what he was standing for or kneeling for. But I don't think every team was like that. I don't think.
Yeah.
There were certainly other teams. I mean, the Seahawks brought him in.
Right.
I mean?
Well, and don't you think that part of it's just, there's kind of a little bit, I mean, whether you have to agree, there's a little bit of a media circus, like even with Tebow, like there's a little bit of a media circus with him. I'm sure there's a lot of teams that don't want Tebow, even though he could play probably tight end or he'd be a good third string quarterback, but they don't want the circus that goes along with that.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like from the Seahawks perspective, it's like, so you have him in your locker room. What happens if Russ starts to struggle or has some bad games, and then it's like you gotta, what are you gonna do? Like you're gonna have part of the locker room that wants to play Kaepernick. You're gonna divide your locker room. You're gonna divide.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're like, well, he's not being played because of this, and it's like, well, we signed him, like,
right.
It's Russell Wilson,
Yeah.
It's not that simple. It's a complicated thing. And like, even picturing Cap as a backup, it's just hard to imagine that. Like, that's this signal caller with a clipboard. Like, that's not Cap. You know what I mean? I don't think he felt that way either. So part of me thinks, and this is just my opinion, that, there were a lot of it was like, if I'm not going to be a starter, like, he was a Super Bowl quarterback. He almost won the Super Bowl. He took them there.
Very close. Yeah.
the NFC Championship, I think 3 times, at least twice, but I think 3 times. And it's just like, without that, I mean, with having that amount of success and that quickly, and then it starts to deteriorate, is like, it's a tough thing. It's just not, it's not as simple and dry as folks try to kind of make it.
Right. Well, so there's still some stuff with this going on. And the Olympian Gwen Berry, she was protesting the anthem. Gratitude, though. I want to talk about that. Like, do you think it seems like it's like cool to hate America, which is like really weird to me? Maybe I'm just out of touch and I'm old. I don't know. But do you think Americans take living in America here for granted? I mean, you've been all over the world. I don't know if you saw what happened yesterday with South America and Cuba, but there's a lot of bad stuff going on in the world. Like, do you feel like America is still a great country, or?
Yeah, I think it's the greatest country. Could it be a lot better? Yes, absolutely. And I think we should continue to strive for that. But I certainly, I don't think it's like that for everybody as far as the hating America is cool. But like, I know what you're saying. Like, I know what you mean. There is, and it's like with social media and things being a lot more visible, things that have been happening for a long time that maybe we weren't aware of, such as, the unarmed people of color that have been, that are, and it's not like, the numbers have necessarily gone up. They may have even gone down, but it's visible. And and even one of these happening is just wrong. And it should be, something that people are up in arms about. Like,
well, especially when you have to see a video, it's really upsetting to watch somebody get killed. I don't think anybody wants to see that of anybody.
And there's lots of things within our country that I think, a lot of systems that are broken, including our political system. Like, this 2-party system is terrible, because
I agree with that.
It divides us.
You're right.
It's like that's its intent almost.
Yeah.
And, I understand a balance of power and all these things. And but like, there is, like, these parties have they have way more power than the actual people, that it's just not, that's not an okay thing. So there's tons of systems that are broken in America or not functioning at an efficient level. That all being said, it's still the greatest, still the greatest country in the world to me. And I've been to a lot of them, and it's just like, we support dream chasers. We love our underdogs. Like, you can be anything, you can come from any circumstance and make it happen. You may have more odds against you, but it's still possible. And there's definitely parts of the world where it is not possible.
Right.
It's
so,
your dreams are oppressed more than just your people, maybe,
For sure. And you are a perfect example of that. So how the hell do you do this? Like, tell me like some tips. Like, do you write down your goals that you want to achieve? Do you break it down into smaller daily goals? Like, what's your daily routine like? How many hours a day or week are you working?
It varies, but I feel like I'm always working, but I love what I'm doing for the most part. So like, I'm okay with that. I probably should do a better job of just enjoying life sometimes and relaxing, but it makes me happy. It makes me happy to chase these dreams and goals, and they always change like that. I don't write stuff down as much and all that, but things are always developing, always changing. And so, I just, like, when I'm interested in something, I go try it, and see if it's a fit, see if it's something that I'm into. And if it's not, then it's not. And I move on. It's all good, But you said you like to stick with things. You hate backtracking. So like, cause you feel like you've wasted time. So when you think about quitting something, you have to like take a break and go, okay, do I really want to like quit after I've spent all this time doing this thing? Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one, but it's like, I think I figured out early on whether I'm into it or not. You know what I mean? So it's just something that, like, am I excited about doing this thing tomorrow? But yeah, I definitely want to stick with something. If I commit to it, if I decide this is something I'm into, I'm going to like smoke it to the filter. You know what I mean? So that's sort of just how I am. And even if I fail, or even if I don't get to where I hoped I would get, I'll still just keep going. I'll keep pushing and do the best I can.
Right. You've been successful because you don't give up and you keep going. You say sometimes like a door may open, but it may not be the door that you're expecting, but some opportunity will arise from what, like maybe like trying out with the Seahawks. You didn't get a career with the Seahawks, but maybe that helped your career with movie and TV because now people know your name.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can leverage, you can leverage your past to feed your future in some way. And even the bad things that happened to you, or the mistakes that you made, that those all can serve as fuel as well. You know what I mean? It just depends on how you look at them, but it's like they happened. You can't really change it. You definitely can't change it. What has already happened. So like, what can you do different? And how can you sort of use that to motivate you for the future?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so going to the movies and TVs, you have a couple different things coming out. The Terminal List, that's that show that's produced by Chris Pratt. And then The Secret of, what is it? The Secret of Sinchani movie?
Yeah, Secret of Sinchani. Yeah, that was I produced that one with a good friend of mine who wrote and directed it. And so we shot that in Massachusetts in January of 2020. So a little pre-pandemic. And then we went back out and did some reshoots in the summer. But yeah, that's like a thriller that's set in the Western Massachusetts, out in the woods. And then Terminal List is an Amazon series that Antoine Fuqua produced and directed the first episode. He's done, The Equalizer and Training Day and Tears of the Sun and a lot of these like kind of epic films. And so he's doing this series with Chris Pratt. And so I have an opportunity. I'm playing like a recurring role on that. And then I directed a movie in October about the charity. It's called MVP.
MVP, yeah.
Yeah, and it's about a veteran living in a shelter, a homeless shelter, who meets a former NFL player, first year out of the league. And on paper, they have nothing in common, but they're kind of going through the same stuff, and they help each other through that transition.
Okay, well, cool. We'll look for that. And then, like I said, I like to end with a charity, and I think you work with two. You work with the MVP charity that helps veterans assimilate, and then the Waterboys. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So MVP, emerging vets and players, we bring together combat vets, former professional athletes, and help them find purpose and identity again when the uniform comes off. And I'm in Dallas today because we're opening our 7th chapter in Dallas. And so we meet on a weekly basis and we train together, vets and athletes. And then we hang out afterwards and kind of talk through our stuff. It's like an open peer-to-peer coaching session where we're all just sort of, we've gone through similar things. We got a mutual respect for one another. And
Mm-hmm.
we're all there for one another, kind of provide that locker room again. And then Waterboys, started by Chris Long, who played with the Rams.
Yeah, Howie Long's son.
Yeah, exactly, Howie's son. Won Super Bowls with the Patriots and the Eagles, and he went to Tanzania with some other players while he was. Well, I think he was still in St. Louis. But yeah, he was definitely still a Ram at the time. And they went out there, and he just felt such a strong pull to like do more. I think it was kind of a service trip, but he was like, what else can I do? And the biggest need, or one of the biggest needs in Tanzania, is clean water. And so his idea was to sort of rally the 32 NFL teams to provide 32 water wells for people in East Africa. And I think it's surpassed that now. And they've raised millions of dollars for these wells, and like they're digging them all over the country and into Kenya now as well, I believe. And so
love it.
It's really cool. So what we do, we would go over there with NFL players and with veterans. We'd go climb Mount Kilimanjaro together every year. I did it for 3 years in a row, I think. And I think we're going to get back to it next year now that we're post-pandemic.
Okay.
But we'll go over there and climb the mountain and raise money for water wells in the process, and then also get to visit these well sites when we're in the Maasai tribe, out there in Tanzania. And it's really a special experience.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, I'll let you go. Last question though, real quick. Would you ever consider running for political office, if maybe third party, since you say the parties are screwed, because you're such a leader and you actually want to listen to people? I think that's rare, especially with politicians.
No, but I want to support the right guy or girl to do that.
But you are the right guy. You're such a leader. People love you.
I'm a mess too. I got a lot of stuff to work with. So, all right. Yeah, maybe like long, probably not though. But many years from now, possibly.
All right. Well, I'd vote for it. I just think it's an inspiration. I think if people could be more like you and just listen to each other, I think that's what's lacking the most in this country.
Yeah, I think we're doing better though. I really do.
Really?
I think we're getting there.
Okay.
It's slow going, but it's probably a generational thing. But yeah, we're gonna have to, or we're gonna kill each other.
I agree. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for doing this, Nate. I appreciate. I know you're a very busy man, so I'll let you go.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Nate Boyer, again, such an inspiration to me. I wish I had 10% of his work ethic and tenacity. I really think he should run for office. And if I have him on the show again, I will keep badgering him on that. For all the things he's accomplished, I respect all of it, but I really love the fact that he's willing to listen and to understand someone who disagrees with him instead of trying to convince them that his point of view is better. And I think if we all did that, the country and the world really would be a better place. And that's part of the reason for having this podcast for me, is to hear different points of view and life stories. I find it all fascinating, and I hope you do too. As always, make sure to support my guests by following them on social media. Nate's website is in the show notes if you want to learn more, as well as the charities he's mentioned. If you want to support my show, all your activity on social media and YouTube with likes, shares, comments, follows, etc., all that stuff helps me out a lot. And if you want to be like Nate Boyer and go above and beyond, then you can write me a review wherever you listen. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And remember to shoot for the moon.